Welcome to Outrun the Neon Sun. This is Dan, and it's going to be a little different. I'm going to go through the top 10 arcade games of the 1980s, compiled together with many lists from online sources as well as my own. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. For those who wanted to feel like they were in their very own monster movie, Rampage was pretty epic. It allowed them that pleasure. As the player controls various monsters as they tear cities apart, stop the National Guard, and eat people. I mean, who doesn't want to eat people? The game was fun due to the sheer amount of enemies, including helicopters, tanks, police cars, and all the buildings you could absolutely obliterate. It could also support up to 3 players at once, allowing your friends to kind of join in on the mayhem and adding to the fun. Rampage was an incredible cabinet, and it blew so many people away, and I remember going to the arcades longing to play this game. Now, Bubble Bobble to me, in 1986, it came out, and it was really popular at the time. I mean, so much so that everybody, even with multiple ports across dozens of systems, the arcade game remains pretty much the definitive version. In the game, up to 2 players control baby dragons, Bub and Bob, as they travel through stages defeating all the enemies by bursting them inside bubbles. I mean, Bub and Bob, what creative names. Its success led to so many sequels and spawned a whole series of copycats. It's also notable for being one of the first games with different endings depending on if a second player was present. Get used to that music though, kinda gets old. Mario Bros. Not Super Mario Bros. Not as successful as these later iterations from the famous plumber, Mario Bros. Is known for giving the hero of Donkey Kong the name Mario, as beforehand he had been known as Jumpman. In the game, both Mario and Luigi battle creatures in the sewers, but unlike later games where Mario can famously jump on enemies, they can only be flipped onto their backs and kicked away. While it had the unfortunate timing of being released during the infamous video game crash, it wasn't long before Mario and his friends were taking over the world. Now, coming in at number 7 is Dig Dug from 1982. Dig Dug, like many famous arcade games, was a Japanese creation before being imported overseas. The game has a simple enough concept in that the player, controlling the hero, has to eliminate monsters underground by inflating them to death or by dropping rocks on them. It's nice. The game was praised for its fun concept and unpredictable nature, as enemies could travel through the dirt to ambush the player. Not to mention, it's really easy for the game's walking tune to get stuck in your head. Dig Dug to me is a quintessential perfect golden age cabinet. Number 6, it's Q*bert, one of the most beloved video game characters in the golden age era. Q*bert became a pop culture phenomenon in the early 1980s. I mean, he's controlled by the player, and the goal is to change the colors of cubes in a seemingly 3D pyramid, all while avoiding enemies and obstacles. The character became so popular, appearing on merchandise like lunchboxes and then even receiving his own animated television show. This game was praised for its unique gameplay and the stellar audio-visual production values. Most of Q*bert's popularity, though, could be attributed to his bad language that would come out, which is still pretty glorious. At number 5, we have Gauntlet. Considered to be one of the first multiplayer dungeon crawl games, Gauntlet appeased both fantasy lovers and general gamers looking for a fun time. It came out in 1985, and I remember playing this so much with my older brother Josh. The game it could hold up to 4 players at once and had to choose between 4 different characters, each with their own skills and weaknesses, which was an obvious influence on the RPG games of today. It was praised for its very compelling level design and exciting fantasy-based gameplay, and forever segmenting its legacy as a pioneer for gamers today. Number 4 is Galaga. Came out in 1981 as a sequel to the successful 1979 game Galaxian. But Galaga introduced a few new features to the well-established formula, creating a bigger and even better game. New to the sequel was the ability for players to become captured by the boss Galaga via his tractor beam. And hot off the heels of Space Invaders, Galaga's success led to so many copycats looking to get in on the shoot-'em-up craze, and its legacy is still being felt today. Galaga earns its spot in gaming history and is still one of my, if not my most favorite game to play. It is still so glorious. At number 3, Frogger Well, they first actually wasn't called Frogger. I don't know if you know, but it was called Highway Crossing Frog, which was pretty horrible. It's considered a classic from the Golden Age. Frogger has been played by pretty much everyone, and we still play games of renditions from this today. The player controls a frog as it makes its way across a river. Think Crossy Roads. It avoids roads, it avoids, an array of like these crazy obstacles. It was a huge sensation, becoming one of the most popular arcade games of the 80s. When the game made its transition to home consoles, it sold 20 million copies. It's still enjoyed in various ports and remakes. And Frogger will always be a video gaming icon. Number 2 is Donkey Kong. Created by famous video game designer Shigeru Miyamoto, Donkey Kong was Nintendo's first breakout hit. It soon became one of the most influential and popular video games of all time. It introduced both the villain of Donkey Kong and Mario, who, as we mentioned earlier, was known as Jumpman. And it was praised for its challenging and exciting platforming gameplay and is known as an early example of the now famous genre, platforming. Spawning numerous sequels, spin-offs, and even inspiring a whole documentary movie, Donkey Kong was a major influence in video gaming and pop culture marvel. So before I get to the number 1 game of all time, at least that was played the most in the 80s, I want to have a few honorable mentions. And the first one would be this game, Joust. Such an amazing game. So quick, so crazy, I just love it. The next game is obviously Super Hang-On. This is just an incredible motorcycle game. It was fast, it was incredible. Now, Zaxxon was a very popular game, and I would argue that this should probably be in the top 10. There's a couple of these that I think would be, like Paperboy. Paperboy is another incredible game. Then you have another game coming up called Pole Position. And Pole Position was hugely popular in the 80s, and it's still popular today. It's still so much fun to play. Defender is incredible if you have the right cabinet for it. Arcade 1-Up did a horrible job with theirs, but this is a great game. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was one of my all-time favorites. I played it non-stop in '89. I love this game. Again, Golden Axe, probably one of my most favorite games. All the memories associated with it was incredible. Then you have Outrun. Outrun is just so much fun. How could you not enjoy speeding down a freeway? R-Type is incredible because of all the different things you can do with the actual ship. The graphics were great. And then you have Raston, which to me is an underrated game. It's one of my favorites. Dragon's Lair, of course, needs to be on this list. It was played so much and is still played so much by me. And finally, Altered Beast. What can I say? I love this game. Such a great game. Finally, number 1. I think it's probably obvious to so many, but it's Miss Pac-Man. Now, Pac-Man may be one of the most popular video game characters of all time, but it's his wife that not only has the better game, but the best arcade game of the era. The goal of these games, as I'm sure you know, is to get kind of Pac-Mans to eat dots while traversing a maze and avoiding famed ghosts. However, what sets the misses ahead is that her game has multiple mazes, forcing the player to quickly change and adapt new strategies as they progress. Because of these new mazes, the game is still incredibly fun to play today, as it was more than 30 years ago, making it easy for the number 1 pick. Hey guys, that's kind of my list. I would argue that these are some of the best games of the 1980s. Obviously, there's a ton of games. I mean, how could you put them in, ranking? You can do the most sold games. I think Tron would be on there. I mean, it's just an amazing game. But I kind of had to make this list. Like I said in the very beginning, I compiled a bunch of lists from a bunch of websites and kind of put them together. So it isn't just me. This is a lot of people who would argue this. And you just kind of have to look at the staying power of these games. I mean, they're still incredible. We play them all the time today. We long for them. The nostalgia it creates, it's just wonderful and beautiful. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please like and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you guys keep outrunning that neon sun. We'll see you later.